Okay, welcome to Behind Closed Doors. I am so beyond excited to introduce our very first ever podcast guest, who's not only my friend, but mastermind behind the Mortgage Marketing Expert podcast, the genius who created M1 Academy, and overall business coach extraordinaire, Mr. Phil Treadwell.
Wow, I'm gonna have you start coming with me and doing promos every time I speak. That was good. I like that.
Heck yeah. I'm so pumped to have you on. It feels like a full circle moment for me because you and I have been business partners for quite a while now. And we've been friends for even longer. And so being a guest on your podcast was like a big moment for me. That was the first ever podcast I was on and really kind of got my juices flowing. And so now to have you as a guest on our podcast is like a full circle moment.
Well, it's fun. You catch the podcasting bug. That's similar to what happened to me. I had only listened to like one other podcast before I started my podcast, and it was partially because I was a guest. It was a realtor, a KW agent, and his last name was Dooley, and his name was Mike Dooley, and he had a podcast called Duly Noted, and I was one of the guests that he had launched. Well, then when I decided to start a podcast, I actually invited a bunch of people to be on before I had a podcast. Like I had a mic, but I didn't know like how to create a podcast. So once I had 3 people scheduled, I called Mike and I said, "Hey man, I love you. I appreciate you. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you didn't do this. I need to know who helped you and I need their number right now." And that's really kind of what happened. Is it was ready, fire, aim, just try to make some things happen. But once you catch the podcasting bug, it's tough not to have it.
It's definitely something that I have been wanting to do, and Philip and Tony and I have been talking about it for months now, and we're kind of throwing ideas back and forth for even longer than that. And then finally, we're like, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to have it all figured out now, but we're going to just go ahead and do it. So here we are.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely.
So Phil, I want to I want to, since we're on a podcast, I want you to kind of fill everybody in on your original podcast setup, kind of the way that you kind of took it from something as small as the way that you started to where it is now.
I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said a second ago, I alluded to kind of the beginning of the story. When I started a podcast, it was really a content idea or a content play. I had been a struggling area manager, regional manager. I had a few states that I was covering. And when I got outside of the markets that I had already worked in or had branches in a previous company or previous life or whatever, when I got outside of that, my recruiting effectiveness went way down. People didn't know me, people didn't know my company. And so I was thinking about, okay, that audience of mortgage professionals that I'm trying to recruit and hire in other markets and build a branch for them, what's value that I can provide? Why would they want to come work for me? And I realized the most value that I could provide a mortgage professional was to help them build their business. So I started wanting to build credibility and that knowledge base. So I started doing some content marketing, like getting featured in blogs and trying to get featured in articles and things like that. So that at the time, this is 2017, 2018, when people Googled you, I wanted to give them something to see. And that very quickly translated into social media. I heard this crazy guy screaming about social media and a personal brand, and that guy was Gary Vaynerchuk. And so I started a podcast page, or excuse me, an Instagram page called Mortgage Marketing Expert. And I didn't brand it to me. I didn't brand it to my company. I was just trying to put tips out on a daily basis, a mortgage marketing tip of the day. Think of Instagram at that time. It was quote of the day, pick of the day, outfit of the day, whatever. So we're like, we're going to do a mortgage marketing tip of the day. Well, after 30 days, there was about 1,000 people following that page. After 90 days, frankly, I started running out of stuff to say. I could only come up with so many one-liners that were going to be meaningful. So I thought, you know what? These are all tips that I've gotten from another coach or mentor someone's taught me. What if I just went ahead and did a podcast and brought experts on, and I used their quotes, their tips to continue to feed this Instagram page? And that was the original idea. And like I said, I had pneumonia for like a week, almost 2. So I'd been down on my back on the couch. And the Sunday night before I was going back to work, I thought to myself, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start a podcast. And so I thought of the 5 or 6 most influential people I could think of in the mortgage industry at the time. And I sent them either an email or a LinkedIn message or whatever I could find on their website and said, hey, I'm starting this podcast. Here's what it's called. Here's what it's about. And I even name dropped the other people I was inviting as potential guests to give it credibility, even though no one had said yes yet. And I had 3 people on Monday that replied back and said they would do it. And I scheduled those for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So on Tuesday, I needed to figure out how to even do a podcast. And so as I said, when I reached out to my buddy, he gave me the name of 2 guys that were in London. And they said they had a marketing company, but I think they were a couple guys in their grandma's basement or something. I don't know. But they said, do you have a microphone? I said, yes, I have a Blue Yeti, like a $100 USB microphone. And they said, okay, great. And I was like, I have a webcam, like a little $40 Logitech webcam. They said, great. There's this platform called Zoom. And keep in mind, 2018, nobody had a clue what Zoom was. And they said, get a free version of Zoom. It's like Skype. But what happens is when you record your conversation, it gives you the audio recording as well. And we'll use that to edit out for your podcast. And so I started recording in Zoom, which was a free version at the time. I had a $100 Blue Yeti mic. I had a $40 Logitech webcam that I don't even think was high def at the time. And the platform that I used to put the podcast out, it's still around. I still use it today. It's called Libsyn, short for Liberated Syndication. And it was $15 a month to where the editors would put my podcast on Libsyn, and it would syndicate it out to Apple and Spotify and Google and all these other places. And that's where we started. I didn't expect anyone to listen to a mortgage podcast because I wasn't even really listening to any podcasts at the time, and most people weren't. But I knew that I was going to get to interact and associate with some of the who's who in our industry. I would get to learn. So I didn't really care whether people were listening. These were people that were charging thousands of dollars a month for their time. And I got them 30, 45 minutes to ask any question I wanted for free because I had this quote podcast. And I recorded 5 episodes. We released it. I created some graphics in Canva or however we were creating them at the time. I don't really remember. And I immediately went to a Mastermind mortgage conference that summer, the week we released it. It was June of 2018. And everybody that came off stage, I'm like, look, I have this podcast. Here's the people that have been on, because I had some pretty big people that had agreed to be guests. And that's how I booked my next batch. And I look up after 10 or 15 episodes, and I've had some who's who of the mortgage industry on, and people were listening, and people were paying attention. I'll never forget, I was getting like 5 downloads a day or 10 downloads a day. And then there was one point whenever all of a sudden we spiked to like 200 or 300 downloads a day. I'm like, what the heck happened? One of our guests had shared out on Facebook the episode that he was on. And I'm like, got it. I can bring guests on, share the podcast stuff with them. They share it with their audience, and we gain more listeners. So it's really been a lot of that. We've been very fortunate to have some who's who in and out of the mortgage industry, from Gary Vee. It was kind of a full circle moment for me to be able to go to VaynerMedia and have some time to record him on my podcast. Evan Carmichael was a huge YouTuber, is a huge YouTuber and author and speaker. Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing. We've had a lot of really cool people in and out of the business that we've been fortunate. But the thing that I tell people is we were doing thousands of downloads a month with that little Blue Yeti microphone and Logitech webcam. I did have to upgrade to the $15 paid version of Zoom, because a little anecdotal story, I didn't know that if you had more than one other person on with you, it timed out after like 35 minutes. So there was 2 people on that were 2 huge industry icons. For those that are familiar with mortgage, it was Barry Habib and Tim Brahim. And it was the first content they had created together in like a decade. And I have them on as guests, and I'm, having this great conversation. This timer pops up. This Zoom session will end in 4:59, 4:58, and it starts counting down. And you can go back and look at the video. Fortunately, I had 2 monitors, and you can see me going like this, pulling out my wallet, because of course there wasn't like a 1-click to pay with PayPal or something like that. And I'm literally looking back and forth trying to type in my credit card number to upgrade while I'm in the middle of this Zoom recording. So we've really been building the plane while we've been flying it, to use another euphemism. And so when we talk about people just need to go take action, I applaud you guys for saying, hey, it's not going to be perfect. We're not going to have everything figured out. I've had dozens, if not hundreds of conversations with people about podcasting and starting a podcast. And what I tell them every time is, frankly, if you just hooked up a $15 Bluetooth mic to your phone and put your phone on a tripod and started recording, you can take that audio and have a podcast. Content is king. If you have something that people want to talk about, they'll listen. And it's just an incredible platform. It's so much fun. I could get into stats of why podcasting is important, go down a whole rabbit hole here. It's something I'm very passionate about. But I can trace back almost every professional success I've had to this day, including my coaching company and speaking a lot of things, to making the decision to just go and act and invite these people to start a podcast. And last thing I'll say is I'll attribute it to a book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. There's a section there where he talks about you never know what people will say yes to unless you ask. And I think he used an example, and don't quote me on this, but he used an example of like if a guy was going to prom and he had a neighbor that had a Lambo or Ferrari or something, and he wanted to take that to prom. He's like, you don't know that he wouldn't say yes if you went and asked him. Maybe that was his dream as a kid in prom. And so that's what I've always taken, is I've always just kind of asked people. I typically try to make sure there's some inherent value for them. Can we promote a product or a book or a service or expose them maybe to an audience that they haven't seen before? But I really think that, over the years, I think it was 2 years before we started upgrading to better microphones and better equipment. And I mean, it was 4 or 5 years before we built out a quote studio and all these other types of things. So I don't care whether it's content creation or lead generation or a business. If you have an idea and you're excited about it and you know this has inherent value for people or solves problems, just go do it. You can't get better at something that you're not doing. So just go do it and figure it out along the way.
Yeah. No, you mentioned that content is king. So right now, as you're looking at content, whether it's your podcast or whether it's, we're going to get into M1 Academy and some other stuff in a minute, but what content are you seeing right now that's relevant and landing in the space that we're in right now?
That's a great question. Content is landing if it's relevant to the audience that's trying to watch it. Now, as far as like types of content, obviously video is the most engaged type of content, but it's also the most competitive. Whenever you put a video out, you're not just competing with other people in your industry with that video. You're competing against all the creators on Instagram or Facebook or whatever video you're putting out. But you're also competing against other streaming platforms, because video is kind of an active thing where you typically watch and listen to a video or read the subtitles at the same time. I've always been a fan of, again, podcasting, because you can listen while you do other things. When you're working, when you're cleaning the house, when you're in the car. But things that are really resonating with people, I've noticed a lot of people are reading more. We're spending time on social media, not as much on a computer, on a device. So if you put a really good picture or graphic and the first 2 lines of your text are a hook or engaging, when people click more or read more or whatever, when that text box pops open, the algorithm is giving you as much credit as if someone watched 5 or 10 seconds of your video. And so I think that written text is important. I saw a stat the other day that for the first time ever, more videos are being viewed without the sound on, which is why captions are so important than ever before. And so I think the type of content is important to figure out who's your audience, what value do you provide. So what's the medium of content? Is that written? Is that video? Is that audio? But it's also important to make sure the things that you're talking about, the audience cares about. And I hate to say it for mortgage and real estate professionals, most of the time that's not mortgage and real estate. Nobody cares about your new listing. Nobody cares about the new cool loan program you have. What they care about is the 2 best budgeting apps for 2025, or how the 3 ways to get started investing in real estate without a ton of money out of your pocket. What are things that are relevant to them? And if you get away from business even a step further, talk about you. Talk about things that are going on with you. Be relatable. Nicole, we talked about this earlier. You're one of the best at sharing, hey, here's a cool thing that happened or something not so cool that happened. Here's some thought processes I had, or here's a cool video that I saw. and sharing with people, and that's relatable, and people want to engage with that. So that's really what, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, the type of content that gets the most engagement and gets shared the most is stuff that people actually care about, and that's typically not the definition of amortization.
Oh, come on.
I don't even think I could spell amortization at this point. You know, one of the things that has always really impressed me with you as a human and as an entrepreneur, as something that you have been saying a lot lately in our coaching calls, is ready, aim, fire. And that's something that I've noticed is
Ready, fire, aim.
thank you. Ready,
Yeah.
fire, aim. What did I say it backwards? Probably. Ready, fire, aim. Ready, aim, fire.
Oh, you had it right the first time. You're good.
What he said. But that is really, I've noticed, especially even in just the last 2 calls that we've had this week, is really resonating with people. What kind of got you to think of just 3 simple words to really get a lot of the minds of our clients within M1 Academy really focused on that and now driving their business towards just that phrase?
Yeah, I would love to say that I came up with the phrase. I heard it somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, if it was a coach or a mentor I've had or a piece of content, but ready, fire, aim, the entire concept is around go take action as opposed to trying to make sure everything is perfect.
No, I can't.
So many of us, we know the phrase, paralysis by analysis, or we've got to get all our ducks in a row. So often people want to have everything figured out or make sure that if they do something, it's going to be perfect before they take action. So the phrase is really a compilation of several of the things that we've been teaching in M1 Academy, you and I both, and a lot of the content we talk about for a long time, which is you have to embrace failure. And when I say embrace failure, it doesn't mean try to fail. It means there's never a situation where doing nothing is better than doing something, even if that something fails. Because if you do nothing, you get nothing. If you do something, you either get a result and a win, or you take a loss. But that loss, that L, is really L for learn. You have an opportunity to learn something. We were taught in academia that you can't fail every test, fail every quiz. Even if you learned everything that you got wrong in academia, you're a failure. But that's not how the real world is. You can fail over and over and over and learn something, and actually that be the catalyst that leads you to success. We hear people talk about it on stage all the time. We hear memoirs and we hear podcasts of people that all these failures created the mental click that allowed them to go on and be extremely successful. But to do that, to have that breakthrough, if you will, someone had to take action. Someone had to do something. But I think it's resonating in a lot of our coaching calls and with people because we're still all, quote, trying to figure it out. How do I record and edit and post the perfect video? How do I do the right podcast so that it lands? And what's the great intro music and the cover art and all the things? None of that stuff matters. Just like you said a second ago, content is king if it's what someone wants, if it's relevant to them. But in terms of lead generation, well, I don't want to make phone calls because I'm not very good on the phone. Well, you don't get good on the phone until you make a ton of phone calls. Yeah. It's just like the gym, and that's another metaphor I use. The gym is the most fair place in the world. If you put in the work, you get the result. And I'm sure there's some cosmetic procedures, but for the most part, you don't get six-pack abs and defined muscles and a great body that's in shape and super athletic. You don't get that through a magic pill, through a shortcut, through some hack, right? You get it by going and doing the work. You put in the reps. Business is the same way. I don't know of any truly successful person that's been successful over and over and has sustainable success that will attribute it to anything other than they took action, they stayed consistent and persistent, they didn't quit, they learned when they got it wrong, and they just continued to move forward. And so that phrase, ready, fire, aim, is just telling people, if you want to do something, you're ready, so go fire, go take action, and then you can aim, you can dial it in, you can figure out the details later once you have better context, right? And just to really drive this point home, Another great example would be swimming. You could watch every video on how to swim. You could read every book on how to swim. You could learn everything you needed to know about how to swim, but you're not going to figure out how to swim and understand what that's really like until you throw your butt in the water and try to figure out how to swim.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to approach when it comes to some of these business tactics.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I had a coaching call last night with a group from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they're really growing. They're expanding. They're in like 5 different markets right now, and we had a talk about, you can't just get ready to 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 get ready, because nothing happens, right? And here's the challenge. Here's what's at stake. And you and I have talked about this before. Right now, somebody else is out there building a lesser quality business because they're acting.
Right.
And they're taking market share away from you, right? So, yeah, I think I love that thought because it is action. It's never always going to be perfect, but if you don't take action, you don't have any way to guide, change, make course correction, do any of that if you're not doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you both are kind of yelling at me right now because it is, I always feel like Phil is yelling at me because he is speaking directly to what I need to hear and what I need to be doing. And so I love that we're collaborating on all of this, and through all 3 of us are definitely picking up something here. I want to pivot just a little bit. I want to talk about M1 Academy. So talk to us a little bit about how you came up with M1 Academy, how you started, and kind of where we are today.
Yeah, I'll try to keep the story short. I had been a non-producing area manager, regional VP, national director. I'd been a non-producing sales leader for about 9 or 10 years. And I had been podcasting and started speaking, and most of my quote coaching were people that worked for me in my company, regions, areas, branches, producers that worked for me. But I didn't want to be a talking head in the industry that hadn't done it in a long time. And what I noticed is when I was coaching people or trying to help them overcome issues, they wouldn't come out and say it, but there was a little bit of, yeah, you were a top producer in 2012 or 13, but this is 2019 or 2020 or whatever. And so in early 2022, the very, very beginning of 2022, I started a production team again. And while I was a national director with a bunch of other stuff, went ahead and started producing as a proof of concept, showing people these tactics that we're talking about work right now. And we were very successful. We went from 0 to a monthly run rate that was in the top 1% in the country in about 6 months. And I hadn't produced as an actual producer in about 9 years. I'd never produced in the state that I was living in, Texas at the time, because most of my production was in other states before I moved there. And rates were going up like 0.5% a month at the time. I think the industry lost 60 or 65% over the course of 2022. So after we had that success in that year, people are like, what are you doing? Open up your playbook. What's happening? So I started a series of workshops called Mortgage Multiplier, where it was 4 2-hour sessions. It was a higher ticket price. Really all the playbook, all the tactics, all the strategies that we used that I was trying to teach people to go out and build their business. And coming out of that, people were getting results, but not like I felt like they should be. And so as I was talking with my coaches and mentors, and we were, talking about the objections I was getting or the reasons people's business weren't growing at the level I felt like they should, he pointed out that they didn't have the same mindset with some of these things that I did. And so that was the genesis of M1 Academy. M1 stands for Mindset First. Mindset's not the only thing that's going to make someone successful, but it is the most important thing because our tactics and the action habits that we take are only as good as the mindset that we approach. We've all been in situations where someone is selling us a product or a service or whatever, and they're pitching us and we're like, yeah, that sounds good. The numbers make sense. I like it, but I don't know. Let me think about it. And then the opposite we've had, someone does it, they're full of enthusiasm and excitement, and you're like, I don't know what you said, but I'm in, let's go. Let's do this. Let me buy this thing. Let me do this thing. That's mindset. That's enthusiasm. Ed Milet said, in sales, we need to stop trying to get people to believe what we're saying and make sure they believe that we believe what we're saying. And it's a subtle distinction, but that's a mindset place. So what I realized is that mindset controls our attitude and our actions, and those are the only two things that we can actually control. What we do and how we respond to things. Real estate professionals, everyone in the industry, in my opinion, if they're still here, they know what to do. They're just not doing it for some reason. And that's a mindset thing. So I would say 70% of what we talk about is still very tactical, but building the foundation of what is your North Star? What are you shooting for? How do you break that into milestones and into goals and into action habits? What is your why? How does that create your unique value offer and your messaging and your marketing, understanding who the audience is? These are foundational things that are very important so that you can build the talent, the skills, the tactics on top of it. And that was kind of the niche that we carved out, is letting people know that your mindset can increase all the other things. It's not about just being positive. It's not just about having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. It's approaching everything with, do I have a strategy and a plan? Do I understand the drive, not just motivation, because motivation comes and go and drive sticks with us. Do we know what is driving us to achieve it? And it kind of came full circle when I heard a stat that 92% of people do not achieve the goals that they set for themselves on an annual basis. And the two reasons, the first one is they're not clear about what they want, which is part of this foundational thing. And two, they don't want it bad enough, which goes to your why. So I realized that if we focused on unpacking some of the mindset stuff for people and gave them the tactics and the habits, that would create a different type of growth that was not only organic to their business, but was also sustainable long term.
That's awesome.
Again, I just got yelled at. It's fine. I'm fine. We're fine. It's part of something that I struggle currently with is mindset. We just had a conversation about this in the car on the way over here is, I'm feeling really stuck and even posed the question, is mortgage where I'm supposed to be right now? And that's just something that, because I do have some goals and bigger things that I have wanted to build, and I'm wondering if the reason why I'm not moving forward faster in those things is because I am so concerned about my paycheck, and I am so concerned about having business within mortgage. And so that really resonates with me. And I love when we talk about that with our clients within M1 Academy, because we are speaking to them, but we're also speaking to myself as a friendly reminder that, and you as well, because you and I are both kind of in that same boat.
And I'm hearing it right now in the real estate space too, right? This isn't fun anymore. It's not like it used to be. Like I used to kill it, and now I'm struggling. And I think a lot of that is mindset, because when you chunk it down and you ask the right questions, you're exactly right, Phil. They know what to do, right? And then when you have that gentle conversation, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I stopped doing that, right? Stop doing the basics, stop doing the things that built the foundation, and they're not getting the results that they want, and they're frustrated.
Right.
So the mindset, I think, is key to being able then to get them to move.
Yeah. I think
Why you guys have been so successful.
Well, no, and I appreciate that. I think that I try to frame it with people like this. If I said to someone, in 3 years, you're going to have $1 million a year income, or $100,000 a month passive income through real estate, or the man or woman of your dreams, or a private jet, or whatever some big goal is, you're for sure going to have it in 3 years, but you have to do these 4 or 5 things every single day of that 3 years to get it. Would you do it? Everyone's like, yes, of course I would. But that's what we're giving up by not going out and doing what we know we're supposed to do every single day. Because in my example, I'm saying you're for sure going to have it. And in the real world, we don't have the belief that those things are going to be on the other side of it. And the ironic part is the only way to create the belief is to go out and take action with the right mindset and understand that every one of those wins along the way that we celebrate is incremental proof that what you're doing is taking you down the path that you want. And then you can change it up, say, okay, what if it wasn't 3 years? What if it was 10 years? Would you still be okay with that? And the answer is yes, because there's that belief and proof that they're for sure going to have it. So In the interim, until we can create the belief that those things are going to happen for us, we have to have an underlying drive. And unfortunately, just having enough income a lot of times isn't there. So many people in our industry is like, I love this industry because of the income or the flexibility or whatever, but I really want to help people. This is my way to help people. Well, if that's truly part of why you do what you do, you didn't say you want to help people ... when it was easy, or you want to help people ... when it's fun, right? You can't have it both ways. And so that's where we have to get into people's minds and understand, if this is really what you want, I don't care if you attach a shallow, tangible, material object to it. I had a guy one time that said there was all these things about helping families and income, and he was pretty successful as is, but what he really wanted was a Rolex. He had this Rolex. It was like $18,000, $19,000. He just really, really wanted that watch. I said, why can't that be the driver then? He's like, well, that seems really shallow. I was like, let me ask you a question. For you to get a Rolex, you need to have a certain, because you're not going to get in debt to do it, you need a certain amount of money, right? He's like, yes. And I said, so you want to take more action to get that amount of money, but you're not going to sacrifice your family's well-being or not pay your bills to get this thing, right? He's like, yeah. I said, then if that spurs you to go take more action on a daily basis because you're going to put this watch on your wrist because that means something to you, why is that not an okay thing? Because you're not taking advantage, people. You're going to go help more people. You're going to help your family bring in more income. All of these things are going to be positive outcomes. And with the excess, you have money to go blow on this thing that you want. So why is that not an okay driver? I think we try to create these goals that sound good to other people or have some, visceral meaning when, you know what? Maybe you want to have a lake house. Maybe you want to drive a certain type of car. If that's going to create the action that it takes to go do these other things and help more people, that's just a byproduct of all the other good things that you're doing. But we don't talk about the money side of it enough because we inherently think that's bad to say, I want to go do these things to go buy this thing for myself, right? But before you can buy that thing for yourself, so many other people are going to get helped. So many other people are going to make money and create wealth and things along the way that it's okay to have that thing too.
Yeah, I've got a CEO friend that I look up to very, very much. She's retired now, and she came from nothing. And she will tell people all the time that the money is good for what the money can do, right? And people get so hung up on that because of their relationship with money. That you're right, all the other stuff comes along with it, and then it allows you to do it, and allows you to have a bigger orbit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good people do good things with money. Bad people do bad things with money. That's really the end of the thing. And I also think that I had a mentor one time that said, the only people that think about money all the time are the ones that just don't have enough or just have enough. Because people that don't have any money at all, they don't care, they don't have any money. Or people that have tons of money don't think about it because they have tons of money. It's like air. We haven't thought about breathing this whole podcast because it's been in abundance. But if you just have enough air or don't have just enough air, that's something that's a focal point in your mind. And that's okay. Money is part of how we live life. It's at its essence, most people won't do what we do for free. So how do we frame it in a way that we use it in a productive way to create the action that we know is going to be positive for everybody all the way around?
Yeah, it's not only something that you need in business, you need it in life in general, in your family life, right? You need to be in the right frame of mind and the right mindset when, I have 2 small children dealing with my kids, right? I can't be in some other place trying to have a conversation and focus on my children. And so mindset kind of encompasses every part of life. And if it's not there, which I feel like mine is not these days, you can see it kind of shattering a lot of places in life. So I think that's super.
And I think if you frame that with other people, you hear me say a lot in our talks and our coaching that people pay for solutions to their problems.
Yep.
They pay with their time, they pay with their money, they pay with attention, they pay with referrals. So if you're providing solutions, they will reciprocate that with some type of, quote, payment. Mm-hmm. So if we're out there trying to solve what is a large challenge for a lot of people, which is money, retirement, net worth, living expenses. There's so many strategies, especially ones in mortgage and real estate, that you can use to go solve that problem, to go out and help people. And I don't think our respective industries do enough to understand what the buyer or the borrower, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, what they're really trying to accomplish. Having that initial conversation, we jump into what type of house do you want? Where are you at? What the features? Or on the loan side, what type of loan, down payment, income, assets, whatever. When we should be stopping and first congratulating them. I'm just excited that you're in this home buying journey. I'm super excited for you. I'd love to know what's significant about this home purchase for you. Or how would it feel to be a first-time home buyer? What's important about this next home purchase? Whatever those initial questions are. And if you ask that a couple of times, what you'll find is there's an underlying reason why they're buying a home or wanting to refinance a home. I had a lady that worked for a nonprofit that she didn't have retirement, so she wanted to buy a house and eventually invest in real estate for her retirement. But as we walked through this conversation, the real reason she wanted to buy a home right then is she's on the phone with me in tears. She was a single mom and had a daughter, and she wanted to let that daughter paint the walls any color she wanted. That was the real reason. I had another lady that called about a bond down payment assistance program. Found out she wanted to buy a home. She had a boyfriend. She was a middle-aged lady, had a boyfriend who owned a home. She wanted to own a home, so if they got married, they could keep both of those houses and make rental properties. And we took it a step further. Her grandparents owned property, passed it down to her parents and aunts and uncles who squandered it, in her words. And she felt like her and her cousins were like, it's up to us to change our family tree. So her real reason was generational wealth. And so if we understand these things that our clients, on whatever industry you're doing, if we figure out some of the why, some of the reasons for them, we now have all these incredible solutions and that we can provide and problems we can solve. And when we start giving them a strategy, cost and price and all these things go out the window because we've tapped into what's actually important to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Phil, one of the things that you have started to ask our clients in M1 Academy is, what is your focus for 2025? Or something that you have been telling us, right, to utilize when we're talking with referral partners, is asking them, what is your focus for 2025? So I'm curious to know, what is your focus for 2025?
Our focus for 2025 from an M1 Academy perspective, and you know this because we've talked about it, is to reach more people in a relevant way. And in a relevant way means, as opposed to just having group programs and one-on-one programs or a podcast or a workshop here and there, it's, can we do some 60-day plans? We just started a 60-day breakthrough blueprint for people. And the other part of the relevant side of that is understanding what's a relevant price. People aren't spending as much for coaching, aren't spending as much for marketing. And we've made the conscious decision, we're going to lower the cost and the investment and over-deliver on value to help you get where you want to go. That same, Tim Brahim was one of my actual coaches, paid coaches, and a friend and mentor. And he always said, no one reciprocates with takers. If you're constantly just wanting something from someone, no one reciprocates with that. But if someone does something nice for you or brings you a gift or does something, we want to do the same thing. We want to reciprocate that. And so in terms of value, what we're finding is, if our focus and goal for 2025 is to go help more people than we've helped before, whether it's through free programs or very low cost programs or whatever it is that we're offering through podcast content, through a book, and we offer those that are relevant things that they need help with their business, and a relevant cost that's approachable to them in what's been a challenging market for years, and the focus is helping people and adding value, that will get reciprocated with the financial things that we need to run the business. And it feels a little bit uncomfortable because I've always been taught, well, this is how many people you need to talk to, here's how many people you need to, in coaching, get members and clients and a certain amount of revenue. And we're trying to kind of throw that out the window and say, how do we just go help more people? If we help more people and add more value, I truly believe the rest will come out on the wash. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If your focus is on adding value and helping people, at the end of the day, you'll make enough money.
And it's so interesting to hear when you and I are having conversations, that perspective, and then the perspective that we started hearing the other day on some of these coaching calls is everyone is starting to realize exactly kind of what they really need to actually focus on, because people do say they have the goals and they know what they want and they know how they're going to achieve it, but are they actually doing the necessary steps to go ahead and do that? So I think that that's super relevant for us right now.
Absolutely.
What are you kind of taking away from this?
Well, I mean, I think it drives home exactly how I've been feeling personally in my business and in when I'm coaching people, that I'm not taking enough action. And, you know, I'm pretty type A. So I want to be in control of everything, right? And I want it to have a certain standard, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But what I'm realizing is that if I can go take more action right now, I'll course correct and get it right. And that's what I'm seeing so many people are needing to do right now.
Yeah, for sure. Me being one of them.
Yeah.
So
that resonated with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Something I'll say is I think these conversations are so important. It's one of the reasons I love podcasting and being on coaching calls, leading coaching. The reason I love this stuff is there's the feedback loop in our own subconscious. Over 2/3 of what we hear every day are our own words. And so our subconscious drives the things that we say and the things that we do. So if we start putting more good in and we start saying more positive things and talking about our goals as if they're happening, all these things go into our subconscious, allow us to talk about it more and take more action. And so again, it's just another mindset piece where, we can't constantly have negative beliefs and negative self-talk and put in, negative TV shows or the junk, if you will. Same way, fitness. We can't eat junk food all the time and expect our body to perform the way it needs to. A car metaphor, you can't have a Ferrari and put the same type of gas that you put a Ford Pinto in and expect it to perform the same way. Our minds are just like that. We can't have a positive growth mindset. We can't expect us to go take action and clearly think about things when we're constantly putting junk in. And that can be, the fix to that is as simple as saying to yourself, I'm a top performer. I'm doing the things every day that are going to allow me to get to where I want to go. My business is constantly growing. People are asking me to be a part of it. If we just start saying affirmations, start talking about our goals as if they've already happened and exist, we start believing it. And people are like, no, I don't, because I know that I'm not taking the action. Well, it'll create the actions. And the proof that you'll start believing it is you have all kinds of crap that you're saying to yourself and thinking to yourself that you believe. Why can't you believe the opposite of those things and go make it happen? And so that's why I like these conversations, and I like, being surrounded by like-minded people who are also talking about it, because that's how we go do big things.
Yeah. And it's funny that you brought up affirmations. Again, I always feel like Phil knows exactly what's happening in my brain, which is a little scary sometimes, but that's also kind of why we're in business together. I have been in my car, or if I'm sitting in my office and it's quiet for a second, I'm throwing affirmations through my mind about who I am as a human, who I am in business, and I find myself having an internal conversation where, I am a top performer. I can do this,
right.
but then I ask myself, why am I not doing this? Because I know that these things are true, but there's a disconnect somewhere. And so it's so important, and I even tell my daughters this. I am beautiful, I am smart, I am kind, and they're trying to reinforce into them as well as little tiny humans that who they are on the inside is a whole lot more important than who they are on the outside. And so affirmations are a huge part of our life right now in my household.
I'm a big proponent of it, and I tell people, even if you just took your goals and rephrased it, maybe put it into Chat GPT and say, these are my goals, turn them into affirmations that I can say that they're already true or already existed. If you just read those out every day, you just had a little note card with your goals on it, as opposed to, I want to do this much business every year, saying, I have done this much business this year, or I'm in the process of it. Whatever makes you feel comfortable, but we also have to be a little bit uncomfortable with it. Right? You've got to say something, and I say comfortable, that you're willing to do, that you're willing to say. But affirmations are a huge thing. It's the subconscious, right? The physiological response, but there's also a spiritual, metaphysical side to it as well. And whether you believe those things or not, I'm not here to say people have to believe one way or another, but there's medical science around the spoken word and affirmations and what it does for your brain chemistry. And I think that should be enough reason for people to understand that's a law that works.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, Phil, this has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like it was almost a one-on-one coaching call for Tony and I to have you on this podcast, and to have you as the very first one. I can't express how much that means to me, to have a mentor of mine, and also you two are my two favorite humans next to my husband and my children. You guys mean the world to me, so I appreciate you so much on being.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm honored to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time very much, and let's go take some action.
We better, otherwise we're going to be, on a sinking downhill battle going on here pretty soon.
All right.
Love
Thanks,
it.
Phil. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks, Phil.